What's up, everybody? Welcome back to As Goodell as It Gets. Back at it again for another year. Um, Went a little harder on the video this year than I did last year with just kind of that quick analysis stuff that I did. But I wanted to do something kind of fun, use my data skills to kind of do something cool and make it look nice. Before we get too deep into this, I'm going to go over the code because I think it's fun to kind of just look to see what went into it all. So set your guys' keepers here. We'll go deeper in that soon. Took the rankings from Fantasy Pros. This helps me get the scores that I got that we'll go over later. Removed kickers and defenses from this list because nobody kept a defense, pretty sure. And then went through tiered rankings, set some keepers, and then we did some positional tiers, which helped with my scoring. The keepers, who I thought everybody was keeping, put into a thing. More data stuff here for the positioning, and that helps with the tier points. So the different tiers of keepers got different point totals associated with them. Tier 1 getting 8 points, Tier 6 getting 6.5. On the Fantasy Pros website, they break everything down by tiers, so that kind of helps there. This sets the tiers here. The tiers listed here are actually for all positions. I did make the switch to only doing the tiers of their position groups. Mainly, the reason for that was after looking at the numbers and kind of switched things around, it was weird having like Josh Allen and Tedoroto McMillan on the same tier. So I just decided, it's like, nope, we're just going to do positional. And it kind of made things make a lot more sense and really showed kind of the strength of each keeper group. Went in for keeper count and how many draft picks I think everybody's going to have afterwards. I think there's going to be a total of 9 draft picks in the keeper rounds. This is the best available table. We'll go over that a little bit later too. I don't remember what this one did. Sorry, I'm on like 2.5 hours of sleep, so I don't know what this did. Does something cool. Oh, that's what this says, I think. Yes. So basically, what I did is I took the best available and gave them a placeholder point total that can be averaged for kind of essentially a potential keeper point, essentially. But we'll go over that a little more later too, I think. Yeah, we can go over it here. So kind of keeper points, what the actual keeper points, potential keeper points here as well, and then how it impacted your overall score. Again, we'll go over that in a little more detail when we go to the fancier spreadsheet. The draft picks. So this is the actual draft board and what that's going to look like. And so I created a scoring for the draft picks to see what your draft score is going to look like. Made it out of 30 points because the keepers are out of 70. That way we can kind of see how that looks. And then obviously each round got a certain point value, and then the total draft scores over there. And then this creates kind of the final version of keeper points, draft points, potential keeper, and then also total score and total potential. So again, we'll go over that a little more in depth now, because that was all the code. So now that everybody's bored out of their mind, let's go into the fun stuff. So this is what I created for kind of the analysis of everybody's draft. The blue bar here is the total score. The dark blue is your keeper points, and the orange is your draft score. So, kind of looking at this, you can kind of see it, for the most part, a lot of people are around the same point total for their keepers. Draft score, there are outliers obviously, and then the draft score, we have the Howell outlier, and then the Sean Live, and I guess a little bit of me outlier here down at the bottom. Anyway, so this is how it ended up ranking for draft score. So the way the draft score works. So the way all of this works is that if you have pretty much a perfect keeper score and a perfect draft, which meaning you didn't trade any picks away, you would have a total of 100 points, right? So that is kind of the best theoretical that you can get. How the keeper points are contabulated is essentially we took the average points from that tier list and then made it out of 70 basically. So whatever those points were, made it out of 70 to kind of make it look like this. That's what these scores are. I was Liv and Sean have phenomenal keepers. Brock obviously has some insane keepers. Mike's keepers are interesting because they are such the two that I have him keeping are both tier 1 at their position, I'm pretty sure. So that's obviously very, very good. So great job there. And then as you work down, you can kind of see how those points change. Same thing with the draft score. We have Howell's just absolutely ridiculous draft. Like this number is just for the model is just insane. Like it's 45 points when like you have the 3 people without trading at all and they're at 30. Just wild. And then down here with myself, Liv, and Sean being under the only ones under 30, but me missing my first and second, Liv missing his first through 5th, I think it was, and then Sean missing his first, and then 3rd through 5th. I think sounds about right. This graph kind of tracks everybody's tracks that same thing just in a visual way, so you can kind of see the ups and downs and see, especially here, that it's relatively flat, other than this massive peak with Hal, and then kind of the drop off here with me, Liv, and Sean. Best available. So these are the best available from who I do not think is being kept. This is their overall rank on as of Fantasy Pros. Their tier from the full position tier list, and then their tier from their position tier list. So like AJ Brown, for instance, he's a tier 3 player in general, but he's a tier 2 wide receiver. This is what's telling me. Or Saquon Barkley is a tier 4 in the overall, but a tier 2 in the position. So that's why, again, I went with the position points for the keeper points, because this like skewed things so crazy and made it just a wild ride. All right, page 2. This is where I kind of go through everybody's keepers, and we can kind of click through. These are all the players that I think are being kept and their associated keeper value by points. The different colors of the different players, but we can kind of click on each one. I'm going to go in draft order. So starting at the top with Mr. Howell. I have him keeping just Jefferson and Cam Scatterboo. He is positioning with all those draft picks, being the first in the keeper round. There's no one really else on his roster to think about. There are the people who really think Luther Burden's going to take a huge step forward. I am on the fence, and I think Howell's probably on the fence too, especially with the talent that's going to be there. Like I said, from that best available table, which now I'm looking at, probably should be over on this other page, but not a big deal. With the best available, I think he's going to be kind of in a position to take basically whoever he wants. I was considering for a little while putting Jeremiah Love into his keeper point total, just because he's talked in length about how that's going to be his 101. Technically, he could do his 102 since Chris doesn't have his first round draft pick. But just to be funny, which he might do now that the video's out. But I think this is his core to start the year, and then his draft is just going to be whatever he want to do. As long as he doesn't fuck it up, it's going to be pretty scary. Moving on to Chris. I also have him only keeping 2, mostly because of his keeper draft positioning with James Cook and Malik Neighbors. I think these 2 are just going to be really great. The Malik Neighbors news is insane right now, that he's, people were talking about him possibly being on the pup, and now he's probably there week 1. And then James Cook is just going to keep getting touchdowns because a lot of people like DJ Moore, but end of the day, he looked like crap in Chicago last year, so we'll see if he looks any better this year. Camp reports are good, but we'll see. Um, but again, I think he gets a good pick here. I think there's a world where you could argue that Bashal Tutin deserved the keep here as well. But I think just because of his positioning, it makes more sense for him to go after a player in the keeper rounds. Mike, as kind of alluded to, you got two really high end keepers here with Jonathan Taylor and Ashton Genty at running back. I do think you only keep the two because I think you want to go in. And again, like I said, that best available is that wide receiver room. Yeah, AJ Brown, George Pickens. I mean, having the third one, you'll have your pick of one of those five. So you can definitely get it. I mean, you can even include maybe not include some of these guys down here, but like those five for sure are some wonderful options for you as your wide receiver one. And I think that's kind of cool that you're joining the league. Where I have the surprises, obviously Bucky Irving's on your roster. You said in the chat a couple times you're not sure about everybody else. I think that's one that is okay to be wary of. I think it's another one that there's a potential it could come back to you in the keeper rounds if you don't want to go running back. So the other one I thought, because I just don't know what kind of player you are, Jackson Dart's on your team. You said you're a Giants fan. Maybe you keep him because you like him. I don't know. But either way, it should be kind of fun to see what happens with the new guy. Moving on to Rachel. I think Rachel is in a super interesting spot as well. I have her keeping 4 with Devon Achane, Josh Allen, Zay Flowers, and Breece Hall. Zay Flower, Breece Hall are in the same kind of range as her other keeper I thought about, T. Higgins. I like Zay Flowers. He's been growing on me a lot kind of over the offseason, especially since he got paid. So he should get obviously a ton of targets. He's like the only guy there who's going to be catching the ball other than Mark Andrews. So it should be pretty good. I think I went Breece Hall over T. Higgins only because of how scarce the running back position is. And she has all of her draft picks, so she can kind of fix wide receiver later. And getting a running back now is good. I wouldn't be shocked if this Breece Hall is a T. Higgins at all, but I think Breece Hall makes sense because of the scarcity at the wide receiver position. Sean, I have him keeping 4. He's in a tough spot with his draft score, obviously, but I think his keepers are. I think his keepers were the top or near the top. Yeah, him and Liv are tied for the top score of keepers just because of how that tier system worked out. Because I think tier one, I think Brown was tier 1 for wide receiver, and I think CD was tier 2. So I mean, that was some just because these over here are the full team tiers. I just ran out of time to make it look super perfect, but obviously his keepers are great. I think there's a world where maybe he looks at having 2 lines and does something different here, but I think that's just too good to pass up. I think there's a potential that maybe Amon-Ra becomes AJ Brown, maybe CeeDee Lamb becomes AJ Brown, but I think this is definitely the core of what he is going to want to do, and I think this is it's a really good starting point, especially with not having as much draft capital. He'll be able to kind of make some moves hopefully during the season and see what happens there. All right, on to Liv. Another similar position of just having to have some high level keepers, and he definitely does with JSN, CMC, Brock Bowers, Chase Brown. I mean, this is a solid roster to start. Anchored at wide receiver with Jackson Smith and Jigba. Christian McCaffrey and Chase Brown are going to be really great little tandem there. Brock Bowers is the one kind of in the similar vein as Sean, and I didn't say it much with Sean, but because he has Trey McBride down here. because they don't have draft capital, I can see a world where they go a different direction and get that wide receiver or that running back, just to shore up that position and just leave the tight ends alone. But I think Brock Bowers and Trey McBride are just too good to do that. So I think that those are definitely the ones that will only tight ends that are going to be kept. Josh Allen's the only quarterback kept, so kind of cool. All right, myself, just real quick. It's gonna be Hampton Walker. I'm gonna go in. You guys know I like drafting, especially since I don't have my first and second. I kind of want to get in the swing of things, so I'll take a couple in the keeper round, see what happens there. Judging by my position, how I've have things projected, one of these five will get to me. I know I had Devonta Smith on my roster this year, but I think there's a world where I'm getting one of these other guys that I like a little bit better. If I don't, then I get Devonta Smith, and it's still fine. So, but yeah, I'm just gonna do two. Surprise for me is if I somehow screwed up the keeper process, and I'll get more than that. Tyler Warren was another one I was thinking about, but kind of like Sean and Liv, I'm missing my first and second. I want to make sure I'm getting the best players I can, and using that on a maybe great tight end doesn't feel great when it's a three wide receiver and two flex league. I need wide receivers and I only have two running backs. Okay, Jose. Jose, I got keeping three with Nico Collins, Garrett Wilson, and Kyren Williams. Great spot with his wide receiver room. Tons of targets here. Probably going to be a target monster and touchdown machine as much as CJ Stroud can support here. Kyren Williams, I think, is the number one, or number. He's the number. I was listening to an analyst. He's the number five. He's the top. He's in the top 5 for best odds to get double-digit touchdowns as running back position. And I mean, and it's like Bijan, Jahmyr Gibbs. I can't remember the other ones, but like I remember Kyren's right there in that same mix to get a bunch of touchdowns, and I think he's gonna be right there in the conversation. I think there is a little whisper maybe in the back of his head for Devonta Adams. Again, he's another guy who is like weirdly high on DraftKings for double-digit touchdowns for his high odds. So maybe, but I think he goes in and kind of thinking the same thing as most people. Is like, we'll just see. If I have to take the guy I was going to keep anyway, might as well keep him, or might as well take him. But all right, and then our second place finisher, Saran. To everyone's surprise, Saran finished second instead of last like most years, but that's okay. I think he goes in super balanced with two wide, two running back. Saran likes keeping the max a lot. I think Jalen Waddle's kind of a wild card of maybe he doesn't keep and he goes with the 3. But he likes keeping the max from what I remember. And I think these are good. Obviously, Josh Jacobs has some concerns with the legal issues going on with him. And I think there were even discussions relatively recently about him possibly still getting a suspension. So maybe this isn't there. But unless news breaks in the next few days, I think Josh Jacobs will still be there on his keeper roster. Drake London, Derrick Henry. Is this the last year Derrick Henry is a good keeper? Maybe, but who knows? But yeah, I think this is a good start for his team as well, especially since he has all his draft picks. So doing pretty well. And then our champion, Brock, with the just redonkulous keeper room that he has. He has so many options he can kind of even pivot to, but these are the ones that I think make the most sense from what I am gathering. I texted him on the side and asked him about it. He said he was going to surprise people this year. So this is kind of, but I think Bijan, Jamar, Puka, I mean, this these three are definitely there. Like he'd be silly not to keep him. I think it would be a really weird move for him to be like, oh yeah, I'm not keeping Jamar because reasons. But I think this makes too much sense with his team just to try to go back and repeat. I mean, he has 2 first round picks too, which is just silly, I guess. But somehow we got there. Terrell McMillan is definitely the wild card here because I think you could easily switch it out for Rashee Rice. But again, Rice is also having some. Oh wait, no, you got confirmed that he's going to have nothing. I don't know if it was confirmed, but I know it was talked about that he doesn't. There won't be anything for Rice, so maybe this becomes Rashee Rice. But I think he likes Tet more. I think there's even a world, and this one's kind of a wild, dark horse. Maybe this could be Travion Henderson. Go in with 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, start balanced. I don't know, maybe. But yeah, so that's kind of that is everything. That was the whole process. Again, I think it's really interesting, kind of looking at um, these point totals and kind of seeing where everyone's at. I thought it was really fun to kind of see this graph and kind of see how the points are listed. Um, yeah, and then seeing these numbers of like, who has a good draft, who has a good keeper room, and then what kind of value are we going to have later on in the draft. So um, yeah, let's see, Germany. Okay, yeah. But I think this should be a fun draft. I think it's going to be wild. I'm really curious to see what Howell can do with this ridiculousness. I'm really curious to see what Brock's going to do with his extra first round draft pick. And then I know everybody's just waiting on bated breath to see what I do with my 3 14th round draft picks. Got to do something exciting there. But I think it's going to be a fun year. Hopefully, you guys thought this was cool. Let me know, I guess. Okay. All right. I'll see you guys at draft, if not earlier. All right. Bye.